And Megan Trosco, I'm the Director of Care Improvement for the Arizona Hospital and Healthcare Association. Many of you have seen my email or seen me on the coaching calls. I do a lot with Qualtrics and the data aspect of it with our wonderful ADHS team. So just to kind of remind you, if you ever are looking for any more information or resources or events or simulations, as Melanie had discussed, they're on saferbirth.org. All of our safety bundles are there. If you're interested in looking at what the next bundles we could be working on are, they're all here. The second link there, that is the facility data survey. That is what we use to put the monthly data in every month. It is open to anyone. You do not need a login to get into that one. So if you want to delegate your data or somebody new comes on the team, anybody with that link can get in, select your facility, and then put your data in for the month. The dashboard, the last link is the Qualtrics dashboard. You do have to have a login for that. And we are happy to get you set up if you have any issues with the password or need to add or remove a team member. Please feel free to reach out to our team and we'll get you hooked up on the Qualtrics dashboard. That is where you can see all your information in real time. So if you are the person that's putting the survey in and you want to see that it actually accepted it, because sometimes it doesn't, then you can go into Qualtrics and look and see if it did accept the data. So we'll start with the new OB hemorrhage bundle structure measures. So all of the structure measures after October of 2022, when they changed things up on us, the national aim would like it to be reported as this scale here is a Likert type scale. 1 not started, 2, I guess we kind of make that one up. 3 is in process, and whatever is between in process and fully in place. And then we've got our fully in place, which is yes, we know what we're doing and we do it often. So 1, 2, and 3 here are going to be the same as the hypertension bundle. So you have your patient event debriefs, your clinical team debriefs, and your multidisciplinary case reviews. They're written exactly the same. They're not specific for hemorrhage. So we've done a lot of work on the surveys to try to make things more efficient and to try to save you all time. So with ADHS and the E&Y team, that's the back end of the Qualtrics, they've linked the questions that are the same to the other survey so that you're not answering the same thing over and over. So if you go in, and I'll show you in a little bit live, but if you go into your hypertension survey and you answer these 3 questions, they will then populate over into this one so you're not having to re-answer. It's the exact same thing. You either do the patient event debriefs or you don't, so you don't have to answer it multiple times. So we realize that you don't have a lot of resources or time, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible with having things cross-populate so that you're not answering it twice. The other thing that I want to point out, though, is the Qualtrics system pulls the last bit of data that you put in there. So that may not be the last calendar month that's entered. So it's not that smart. I wish it was. It's not. So if you're putting in January, February, and March, but you do it backwards, and the last one that you enter is January, when you go in to put in April, it will pull January. So just kind of keep that in mind. It will tell you which month is the last one that has in there that it's pulling from. But just to keep that in mind, if you do have the option, you've got all the months in front of you, or you have a couple months in front of you, you want to try to do the most recent last so that that will be the one that pulls up when you move on to the next month. So these are a couple of the new measures specific to the hemorrhage bundle. Does your hospital have an obstetric hemorrhage supplies readily available in a cart or mobile box? And then if yes, we do this, where the question will pop up, where are they? Just so we can figure out, do you have just an L&D, postpartum, emergency, all 3? Structure measure 5. A little bit similar to the hypertension where I kind of had A, B, and C there as well. Do you have hemorrhage policies and procedures reviewed and updated in the last 2 years that contain the following pieces? So you'll have to say, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fully in place for these ones, and they'll kind of populate separately. Structure measure 6 is about patient education materials on urgent postpartum warning signs. Again, same as hypertension bundle. This will pre-populate, and it works both ways. So if you decide to go in and do your hemorrhage bundle survey first, it will populate into the hypertension so that you're not having to answer the exact same questions. So S7, it's a little bit new to this survey. It's going to be linked to process measure 2, which I'll talk about in a second. But does your facility have the resources and supplies available to quantify cumulative blood loss for both vaginal and cesarean births? Do you even have the resources to do this, yes or no? So that's going to link to process measure 2, which I'll talk about in a minute. All right, so your process measures. One other thing I want to talk about with the structure measures, though, you probably remember from the hypertension bundle, those also save your answers. So if you are putting fully in place for the first 5, it will remember that. It's not going to ask you, if your structure is changing all the time. It's assuming that once you have it in place, it's going to stay in place. All right, so for process measure 1, this is going to be a numerator and denominator. They're asking, of all birth admissions, how many had a hemorrhage risk assessment completed at least once between admission and birth? So that one you're going to have to find numerator and denominator for and report that. Process measure 2, this is one I was talking about, will only populate if you say in S7 that you have the resources and supplies. If you say there's no way we can do this, it's not going to ask you to provide a numerator and denominator. So it'll only populate it if you do say you have the resources and supplies available to do this, and then it will say, okay, what's the numerator and denominator for that? And then process measure 3, patient support after obstetric hemorrhage. It wants to know, is the denominator of pregnant and postpartum people with greater than or equal to 1,000 mLs of blood loss during the birth admission, how many of those received a verbal debriefing, like you saw in the video, from their care team before discharge? And in the steering committee, there is a lot of talk back and forth about this denominator. We did not make this up. This is what we have, and this is what we have to work with. We do realize, though, that that number is just like, it's not black and white. There are plenty of people that have less blood loss that could end up in the ICU or have, who knows, all sorts of different things going on. This is what National AIM picked, so this is going to be the denominator that we're going to work with for now, realizing that that might not encompass all patients that need some kind of debrief. Process measure 4 and 5 are going to be similar to what you saw in hypertension as well. Specifically, we're asking on obstetric hemorrhage education on the A's for both nursing and providers. It's the same. Have you had this education in the previous 24 months? And then report as a percentage. I don't love these questions. It's very subjective. I mean, it's not like you have all your OB providers lined up in a room and you're like, about 75%. So yeah, this is a tough one. This will save, so bear with us on this one and try to do your best to kind of see how many you have there. And then the equitable question is exactly the same on respectful and equitable care, and will pre-populate from the hypertension bundle. P6, same as hypertension as well, and will pre-populate for you. Unit drills, you're reporting everything you're doing in hypertension or hemorrhage. It's going to be for both. The question's exactly the same, so that will populate. All right, so we have a wonderful steering committee who has a wealth of clinical knowledge, and National AIM gives us all the measures, but they don't really give us a goal. We can look at what the other states in the US are doing. We can decide if we think it would work for Arizona. And then we brought that to them with everything that everyone else is doing, and the steering committee came up with these great goals for us, so here they are. Goal 1, the proportion of hospitals that have an OB hemorrhage cart readily available. Any cart, any mobile box, everybody should have one. So they would like us to hit 100%, which I think is going to be easy to do. Goal 2, the proportion of patients who had their blood loss measured from birth through the recovery period using quantitative and cumulative techniques meets or exceeds 80%. And this will be of those that say they have the resources to do it. And I think we can do that one as well. Goal 3, percentage of facilities who establish a standardized process to complete a hemorrhage risk assessment at the time of admission for birth is 100%. I think most of you are already doing that anyway. And then goal 4, so this was a little touchy with the denominator again, and again, we kind of just, instead of asking you to collect a whole nother denominator, we're going to use a denominator that we're already asking you to collect. So among the denominator of those who had greater than or equal to 1,000 mLs of blood loss, the number of those patients that the clinical team debriefs, separate from the patient having a debrief with their team, meets or exceeds 50%, which is what we're doing for the hypertension. All right, so I am going to just kind of show you quickly, what do I look like on time? All right, so this is the dashboard. And this is going to be, if anybody has been on the other dashboard, it's going to be very similar in its look. But you'll be able to see all of your facility specific on the left-hand side. You'll see 2 columns, facility specific when it goes live on the 19th, and executive. Everybody that can see facility can see executive. This is more like the executive where you can see everybody de-identified. And this is all just like test data. It's not anything real, but just to make sure that the dashboard is working. But those of you who haven't been in the dashboard, it's really quite interesting. You can see all the process measures. You can see everybody de-identified, see where you fall. You'll know your own number because it will say on your facility dashboard. You can see the percentage of folks who are at that 80 to 100% in the green. You can see where you fall there for all the process measures. You can see how many unit drills folks are doing and what the topics are. And then you can see the structure measures, how many groups have, the green would be fully in place on this one. Hemorrhage cart's fully in place. If this is real, it'll only be 14%. So it's a great dashboard. It has all the information. And then they've placed the goals in with the little circles, so you can kind of see how we're doing as an aggregate. In the executive dashboard, you can see how well we're hitting those goals as a group. And the best thing that I like about the dashboard is what I was just saying at the bottom. When it's facility specific, it'll just be your facility, and you can see how many times you've put in a survey. So if it's 6 surveys for May, you went a little overboard on May, we'll need to dial that back. You should have ones all the way across the board. And if there's just like a dash, it means there's nothing in. So if you just submit it and it's not going in, or you think it went in, but you want to check and you see a dash, you might have to go back through and resubmit it. So this is a great place to come to check because it's in real time. As soon as you're done with the survey, you can just log in or you can refresh and it will show you if that survey went in. And then the other thing that I like is at the bottom, you will have access to a retake link. So if you have data and then someone says, oh, I totally forgot, we have all this extra new data and it really needed to go in there, you can actually come down and hit the retake link and fix the numbers. So that's nice too. I'm always happy to help if things aren't working or if we need to delete it, but you do have access through the dashboard to do some of those edits. This is what the survey looks like for those of you who have done the survey. You go ahead and just select your facility. And then this is going to be the new look. And again, this goes live on the 19th. So not right after here do we expect you to run back home and submit data. It's all that test data needs to be removed, and then everything will go live on the 19th. But come the 19th, you will see that you have a starting page after you select your facility that has the 2 different bundles, and you can decide which bundle you want to start with. And then when you're finished with one of the bundles, it will ask, do you want to submit another one or not? Just like the other survey, you just select month and year. And then if you have those structure measures in there from previously, they will pre-populate, like I said. You can select a new number if you've kind of moved up the chain here to whatever 2 is. And let me see. Let's see if I can click through this pretty quickly. All right, so structure measures will all come in first. Clicking through all of these test ones, I am not unaware of how much work this is. If you flip-flop your numerators and denominators, they've put in like a stopgap thing here so that you can't go through with that, so you shouldn't have any negative numbers. So it'll just give you a little warning. I just want to get to the end because that is one thing I get a lot of questions on. Come on. Again, not unaware that this is a lot to ask. None. All right, so once you get to this page, you can download the PDF of your answers. That's super helpful if it goes completely missing, because then you can send that PDF to me and I can upload it on the back end of Qualtrics and you don't have to do it all over again. But the biggest, most important part is you scroll all the way to the bottom and hit submit so that it goes through, and then you can check the dashboard. If for whatever reason you try to get into the survey and it's not letting you change the date, it means that it did not, for whatever reason, accept that survey. So please just kind of click through till you get that screened again and try to resubmit it. If there's 2, it's easy for me to get rid of one of them. But when you get stuck and it's not letting you change things or not letting you change the date, it just wants you to go all the way through to the end and then resubmit. This is that question I was telling you about. Once you submit one, it says, do you want to go back and do the other one? Yes or no. No will just end the survey and say thank you. And yes will send you back to that selector screen so that you can select the next survey. So that is the surveys, and pretty much all I have to say about the data. And I'm happy to help at any time. That's what I'm here for. If anything goes crazy or you need it reset or deleted, that's what I'm here for.